This is an ABC News Yahoo News live stream. Election night. Your voice, your vote. Here are Dan Harris, Amy Walter, and Olivier Knox.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Harris alongside ABC News Political Director Amy Walter and Yahoo News White House correspondent Olivier Knox. Depending on how you count it, and depending on how good your math is, it's been about 2 years of campaigning, and now it is finally over. It's in the hands of the voters, and we could be heading into a drawn-out nail-biter of a night all over the country. The lines are long as people cast their ballots. Among the voters, Mitt Romney himself, seen here with his wife Ann in their hometown of Belmont, Massachusetts. Listen to what he had to say.
Who did you vote for, Governor? Who did you vote for? Ohio, Governor?
Meanwhile, the president made a surprise visit to one of his campaign field offices in Chicago. Here's what he had to say.
I also want to say to Governor Romney, congratulations on the spirit of the campaign. I know that his supporters are just as engaged and just as enthusiastic and working just as hard today. We feel confident we've got the votes to win.
Republican Veep nominee Paul Ryan hit the polls with his 3 kids in his home state of Wisconsin, which is a big battleground. We'll be talking about that. Team Romney hopes Ryan can help pull in that state for them tonight. And there was a revealing moment when Vice President Joe Biden went out to vote in his home state of Delaware. Listen to this exchange.
Any prediction for tonight?
Oh, I'm feeling pretty good.
The last time you're going to vote for yourself, you think?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Very subtle there. So we've already begun
We're
the
teeing up,
2016 campaign.
It's a full employment act for political reporters everywhere. We have a lot we want to get to during the course of this live stream, but we're going to start with Gail Gitcho, who works for Team Romney. Gail, are you with us?
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us. So the latest ABC News tracking poll number shows the president pulling ahead for the first time in our tracking poll, up by 3 points, 50-47. When you see this, does it give people in your office heartburn? Do you feel like the wind is behind your opponent in this home stretch?
No, not at all. In fact, we feel really good about where everything stands. These polls have tightened in recent days, and I got to tell you, it's because Governor Romney's closing message of having more jobs and higher take-home pay. But the enthusiasm that we've seen really goes to those numbers. We have our offices in the states just brimming with volunteers, and if you look at our rallies, we're at capacity because folks are just pouring out to see Governor Romney and hear his message, and they believe that he can win, and so do we. I think the wind is at our back, and these polls are so tight. I think that it's going to be a long night, but at the end of the night, there'll be a decisive Romney victory.
Okay, let's talk about the one state that the governor is visiting today, and that's Pennsylvania, a state that hasn't been on the map for most of this campaign, sort of popped up at the end. Tell us how you see a Governor Romney winning the state of Pennsylvania, a state that's eluded Republicans for quite some time.
Well, first of all, Amy, it's a great question, and Pennsylvania popped on our map at just the right time, and we think that timing is everything. Go to Pennsylvania time, and we went there on Sunday, and we had just an incredible event there. There was a large crowd, a lot of energy and enthusiasm in the states, and we've seen those numbers close over the last couple of days. So yesterday, when we were talking about what Governor Romney was going to be doing on Election Day, we had him just going to vote. And he said, no, I want to go campaign. You can't, he won't sit still on this last day while polls are still open in important states like Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Gail, is there some number above which, I know you're predicting a Romney victory, is there some number above which he would have a definite mandate to govern? Do you think he just needs to win by, if he wins by 1 electoral college vote, let's just say? Just at the end of the night, does whoever wins have a clear mandate for the next 4 years?
No, you know, it's a good question, but I don't think that you can put any kind of number on it. The next president of the United States is going to be elected by the people, and you know, I wouldn't put any kind of electoral college number on it. But what's going to be important about tonight is that when there is a winner, and we expect that fully to be Governor Romney, that his first goal is to go into Washington and make it work again. You've heard him talk over the last couple of days on the campaign trail about needing to reach across the aisle, and he's encouraged people across the country to reach to their neighbors across the street who perhaps have another guy's yard sign in their yard. So I think that no matter who wins by how much, it's going to take some bipartisanship to get this country moving again.
Gail, we know you and everybody you work with have been working incredibly hard, and you must be exhausted, and we really appreciate all of your time on this culmination day. At least we hope it is the culmination of the campaign. Thank you again. We really appreciate it. That was Gail Gacho from the Romney campaign. Amy, let's talk about how to get to 270. That's the magic number here.
It is.
You've got your magic map up.
I have a magic map.
It
is. It's working just on magic.
Really?
There's no math. There's just magic. No, but this is, as we know, that the popular vote is very important, but it's the Electoral College that elects the president. And this is the current path right now. You see these white states here. These are considered the toss-up states. We have Pennsylvania leaning blue. As I said to Gail, this is a state that Republicans say they want to fight in every time, and they always come up short, in large part because of the eastern part of the state, Philadelphia and the suburbs, very Democratic. So to win tonight, I think for both parties, here's the pathway. For President Obama, it really does go through the following states. It's his firewall out here in the Midwest, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Iowa. You put those together, he can lose all those other white states. He comes up with 271. The math gets a little bit harder, though, when you look at what Mitt Romney needs to do here. So let's say he does win Florida, and he captures Virginia, two states that have been leaning, Florida's certainly leaning toward Romney, Virginia much more competitive.
And
but
we'll
now
know
we still got to figure, we should know that pretty soon.
We may know it pretty soon.
But if Ohio eludes him, if Wisconsin eludes him, boy, he does have many more pathways to go here. So it's a much tougher road. But Ohio and Pennsylvania, there's a reason he's spending his time there. Those are the two states, Ohio with 18 electoral votes, Pennsylvania's 19. If he gets one of those, he's at 268, and boom, he can lose Iowa, Colorado, Nevada, Wisconsin, Ohio. All he would need to do is pick up New Hampshire and win.
We want to marinate in this electoral math for just a few moments. And not only do we have Amy here, but we have a whole murderer's row of Yahoo News correspondents and columnists, including, to my left, Walter Shapiro and Jeff Greenfield. Thank you both for being here. What do you think about the various paths? What's the best case you can make, and I'll start with you, Walter, for Romney getting to 270?
The best case is that there's a Paul Ryan effect in Wisconsin. That fundamentally, the way I've always worked was the John Kerry states +2. In this case, Obama is being given New Mexico. He's almost certain, from everything I read, to win Nevada. So it really takes pretty much Romney to run the table. And the real thing is, if he can take Wisconsin off the board, that would be a big one for me, because I do think I just came back from 5 days in Ohio. All the vibes say to me that Obama's going to take Ohio, though there's certainty is something that one should be very nervous about at this point on Election Day.
First of all, we appreciate you being the first person on the live cast to use the word vibes. Jeff, let me turn to you. What about this late game play by Romney for Pennsylvania? Viable?
As opposed to vibes. Pennsylvania is to the Republicans what Lucy and the football is to Charlie Brown. They always had this 4 years ago with McCain. They always see Pennsylvania, 20 electoral votes. It's got a lot of conservative pro-life folks between Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and white working class people even in those cities. We can get them, and since 1988, they haven't. But if Walter is right, if his vibes are tingling that Ohio's going for Obama, he's got to take something. And it may be, look, they had the money. Nobody was campaigning in Pennsylvania. It would be the ultimate kind of weird, unexpected result if a state everybody had chalked up to Obama probably for 4 years flips.
Well, what one of you was saying, when we were engaged in the manly art of getting makeup applied to our faces in that little room back there a couple minutes ago, one of you said to me, and I can't remember which, if Obama loses Pennsylvania, it means he has some really bad pollsters.
That was me, and it is true. Because one of the reasons Obama seems to be likely to win Ohio is that they were in very early. They did the whole demonization of Romney as the rich guy, the man who loves to destroy jobs, the man who has Cayman Island bank accounts. Then the 47% comment just punctuated that. Obviously, because they were confident about Pennsylvania, none of that characterization of Romney took place in Pennsylvania. And that is why, if somehow Obama loses Pennsylvania, I would not like to be his pollsters trying to apply for their next presidential campaign.
Olivier, let me get it over to you. Talk to me about Virginia. For those of us who are going to be watching tonight early, why is Virginia so potentially important in terms of signaling how the rest of the night's going to go?
Well, it's a great battleground state. It's got a lot of electoral college votes. But the way it works is we're going to be looking to see not just who wins, but by what margin. Because tonight, whoever carries this state, I mean, if it's a landslide either way, we can start looking for echo effects across the rest of the map.
But we're not going to see any landslides.
I don't think so
right?
either. You know, the Obama folks earlier today were saying that they were happy because they're seeing high turnout in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia, a heavily Democratic part of the state, so they're already seeing what they're saying that they're seeing a lot of positive signs there. They put a lot of effort in winning Virginia. He made a lot of stops there. Interestingly, it's not on his list of interviews. The president's doing a bunch of television interviews today. There is one in D.C. that's clearly going to reach people in Northern Virginia. They put a lot of effort into getting this state, and they feel fairly confident. But as early as this morning, they were saying just watch the margin of victory, watch that most closely.
All right, so this issue of signs, what to watch, is something we're going to be all over as our coverage continues tonight. You are looking at the key signs.
I am, and in fact, you can do this at home as well. You can follow it at abcnews.com. The signs that I'm watching for, and Virginia is a great place to go in terms of the signs of which counties to vote for. We call them the counties that count. Prince William County is the one in Virginia I think that we will all be paying very close attention to. This is suburban Washington, D.C., fast-growing exurb. This is suburban women. We've been hearing a lot about them, and also a growing Hispanic population. Those are two groups of people that Barack Obama is going to need to win again. He won them in 2008, but he'll need to win them again if he's going to win that state.
What else are you looking for?
I'm also looking at some of this early vote number. You know, this is sort of fascinating to me. It's the fact that Election Day, while it is very important, has become less important than it was.
As John Carl called it, election month.
It is an entire month. We have almost a third of the country, maybe more than a third of the country, that has voted before the polls even opened. And in some of these early states, some of these battleground states, Colorado, Nevada, 60–70% of the vote has already been cast. So looking at some of those numbers there, you see that the Obama campaign still ahead in the early vote in places like Iowa, which is going to be very important, but behind in Colorado. Are those signs going to tell us who's going to win that state?
Walter Shapiro's vibes tell him that Colorado is going to go to Romney tonight. Any other specific signs we should be looking for?
Well, I'm also paying a lot of attention to the diversifying electorate. Demographics is destiny. That's the model that the Obama campaign has been riding on, which is that white voters are continuing to become a smaller share of the electorate. Mitt Romney's only path to winning the nomination goes through winning overwhelmingly among white voters, even as he loses non-white voters, African Americans, Hispanics, by big margins. So what percentage of the vote in these battleground states and nationally is white versus non-white is going to tell us a lot too.
We're also going to be watching very closely social media tonight. The debates were huge social media events, and Phoebe Connolly, who's a senior editor over at Yahoo News, covers the entire internet for us on these live streams. Phoebe, what are you looking for tonight?
Well, I like to think that I pay attention to the vibes of the internet. That's actually what I'm doing out there. We are looking to see what the volume is going to be around social media this evening. So as you mentioned at the debates, the most tweeted political event in U.S. history, now that Twitter's been around that long, was the first presidential debate with 10 million tweets. If you think about where we were at 4 years ago in the post-election note that Twitter posted about volume and what they were seeing, they congratulated Barack Obama on having the first presidential Twitter handle. So we're obviously in a really different place than we were.
Do you think that tonight has any chance of being the kind of social event that the debates were? I mean, are there memes that you're going to be looking out for? I guess people will be watching the coverage and making GIFs and whatever it is.
Well, and there'll be a lot more participatory involvement as well. People taking photographs of the lines at polling places, which we've already seen. Yahoo folks at the Signal looked this morning on Twitter to see what people were sharing around the election. And we are seeing consistent volume, around 500 tweets per minute, since around 7 a.m. Eastern time this morning, of people commenting on the long lines that they're seeing at polling places. But we're seeing much more volume, closer to around 2,000 tweets per minute, around people just saying, hey, I voted, I went out, I went to my polling place.
And Phoebe, one thing that we've been picking up too is this idea of actually taking a picture of your ballot while you're standing in the voting booth is actually not kosher. It's actually illegal to take a photo while you're in there, and a lot of people now worried about the fact that they've Instagrammed their ballot.
So if you go onto Instagram right now and you go under the Explore tag, you can search for people who have tagged their photos with vote. As of an hour ago, there were over 500,000 photos that people had uploaded saying #vote. Citizen Media Law Project is one organization that has pulled together statistics around this, but in states like Nevada, Texas, and Michigan, there are actually statutes in place prohibiting you from taking photographs in your polling places, so you shouldn't be doing that.
Phoebe, this is a good time for last-minute campaign blitzing. We got the president doing a big, long round of TV interviews. How much are we seeing in social media? Are we seeing some last-minute tweeting by any of the principals?
Absolutely. Biden shared a photo of himself at the polling place this morning. Also, Mitt Romney's body man, who has his own Twitter account, shared a photograph of the Republican candidate voting.
But Joe Biden did not Instagram his ballot.
Exactly.
That would be really awkward if his ballot were thrown out.
Especially since he probably wrote in Joe Biden for president. Phoebe, thank you. Let me throw a question out to the whole group here. Role of Hurricane Sandy, Superstorm Sandy.
The poll number that stays with me, it's the NBC Marist poll out of Ohio, I think was released Saturday. Do you approve of Obama's handling of Hurricane Sandy? 73% yes. Disapprove, 7% yes. And that clearly signifies that, at minimum, it was a help to Obama. How much a help, I don't know.
Was this the October surprise?
Well, the Republicans are going to certainly say it was if Romney loses. Now, the numbers show that Obama was beginning to improve his position before Hurricane Sandy. But in the same sense that in 2004, John Kerry, I think to this day, thinks the release of an Osama bin Laden tape made the difference, I think you're going to hear the Republicans for the next X years say, well, we were building, we had this sucker won. Haley Barbour said it just this morning, and Sandy came in and stopped the momentum cold. Whether it's true or not is less relevant, than it will be the talking point if the Republicans lose.
No, I think you're exactly right in that. At least what we were seeing before Hurricane Sandy, we were talking about this a lot, all of us, the possibility of an electoral popular vote split, right? That, okay, the battleground states, Sandy didn't have much of an impact, but it could have an impact on the popular vote. And that's what we saw in our own poll. Jeff is right. The numbers started to move and close before Sandy hit in terms of President Obama making up some territory he lost after the first debate. But I think what Sandy did is it left the last taste in the mouth of voters, a good one of the president. And that could be the difference between winning the popular vote and not winning the popular vote.
If, and this is a big if Romney loses, Olivier, is Chris Christie going to be blamed by members of his own party? Because, as you know, he lavishly praised Obama's response to the storm.
That's a great point. You're already seeing some admittedly anonymous carping about Chris Christie's role in the last week or so. You know, Sandy took him off the trail, basically.
Took Romney off the trail,
took Christie off the trail as a surrogate. You know, there's an anonymous Romney advisor quoted in the Huffington Post complaining that Chris Christie wouldn't even come to a rally in Pennsylvania this past week. Well, obviously, Chris Christie wasn't going to go out of state to do a political campaign rally. I think if anyone believed that, they were you know, clearly fooling themselves. But you're already hearing some complaints, and some people saying, well, you know, this took Christie off the trail. That's going to hurt us in places like Pennsylvania, a couple other states. It's certainly going to be interesting to see whether the Obama folks credit the Christie bear hug for any gains. I'd be surprised if they did that. And some Republicans who have a bit more distance from the campaign are saying, look, this is common. Bipartisanship in times of disaster. You frequently see the governor, who after all is dependent on the president for, among other things, federal aid, rush to embrace the person who could be, in fact, you know, opening the dam to federal money. So it's not that uncommon. It certainly is going to be fun to see how the Romney folks take the Christie role and describe it in the coming days.
So not only is there the presidential race on the table tonight, but we've got some pretty interesting stuff going on in the Senate.
That's right. You know, 2 years ago, we sat down and said, who do you think is going to take control of the Senate? You'd look at the math and you'd say, boy, this is going to be really tough for Democrats to hold on to this. They have 23 seats up, just a handful of seats up on the Republican side. Most of the seats up for Democrats in really red states like Montana, North Dakota, places like Missouri. And then over the course of this election, what we've seen is a combination of luck, bad luck, and some bad recruiting and some bad candidates have really helped out Democrats, so much so that there is talk now that Democrats may actually increase their majority. There's nobody talking about the reality of Democrats losing their majority.
And in the House, we're not expecting to see much tonight.
Not expecting much, maybe 4 or 5 seats, one way or the other, maybe Democrats picking up a handful. This is a redistricting year. It's very rare that you get a redistricting year and a presidential year, but when you do, you can see that the impact of why the election before redistricting year is so important. Republicans got control a lot of the state legislatures. They drew lines to help their candidates, and that has hurt.
Can I just say one
Yes,
word about the House?
Yeah.
For those who care about the House, there's one very early race to watch. It's Kentucky 6. It's the Louisville suburbs. It's Ben Chandler, your imperiled moderate Democrat, and another tough race in a state where Obama's going to get wiped out. So if Chandler holds on, I would suggest that you might downplay your expectations for Republican gains in the House.
But and I asked this to the whole...
And that that's a very early thing, you'll know.
I asked this question to the whole table. This is an all-in, everybody in the pool type of response. If the chattering class and the polls are right, and we have a long history of the chattering class and the polls being wrong, but if they're right, we're looking at a likely scenario where we have the incumbent winning and no change in the House or the Senate and $6 billion spent on this campaign, give or take. What have we gained, if anything, if the predictions hold? And where does it leave us in terms of solving the big problems that this country faces?
Apart from a fine bottom line for radio and television stations, it leaves us where we were. There's absolutely no reason to think this is going to move the needle at all. John Boehner's already said, forget about any revenue increases, even on people over $1 million. You know, there's a famous quote from Herb Stein, Nixon's economic advisor. If something can't go on forever, it won't. I'm beginning to think he's wrong about the gridlock and dysfunction of the Congress.
The political incentives just aren't there for compromise.
That's what I think.
And let me just throw out one other thing. If it ends up like this, particularly on the presidential level with Obama winning, let us say the fiscal acumen of large Republican donors to large Republican super PACs might be questioned. That these are supposedly genius businessmen who made so much money, but it's quite possible they participated in an income transfer program from them to Republican campaign consultants and TV stations.
Right, and they're against income redistribution. So we'll bear that in mind as the night continues. One last guest we want to get to, and this is important. This is Ben LeBolt, who's with Team Obama in Chicago. Ben, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you fine.
So does it give you any anxiety that your rival is hitting Ohio and Pennsylvania on this final day and your guy is staying in Chicago?
What the president is focused on today is turning out our supporters in key states across the country and making sure that voters on the way to the polls hear his message. He's doing a series of satellite issues in battleground states across the country. But look, he's been crisscrossing the country. On one day, he campaigned nonstop for 48 hours. I think voters in key states have seen him out there working for it. Now the time is to turn out our supporters. We've got more than 208,000 volunteer shifts filled across the country today. We want to make sure that they're not focused on building events. They're focused on getting their friends and neighbors to the polls.
Ben, I'm going to just go off the political and onto more of the emotional for a moment here. We saw the president getting quite emotional last night, an actual tear rolling down his face there in Iowa. I'm just curious what's going through your head and the folks that you've been with now for the last how many months in that campaign headquarters in Chicago as you're coming up on really the final hours of the final campaign.
That's right. I mean, you know, many of us have been here in Chicago for 600 days, but we feel like we all started in February of 2007 when this unlikely journey began in the first place. What's incredible about this team is while we've always brought in new blood, that the core of it has remained intact for years. And it was a bunch of people who believed in the president when nobody thought he would win. We proved that organizing on the ground still mattered more than money did, and it's been a long several years working through many challenges that the nation faced. So it's certainly good to see old faces. Just about everybody who was involved in the first campaign is back here making calls to voters to turn them out today, and it's a very memorable experience.
So any tears rolling down your face now, Ben? We're going to see that tonight.
Well,
Maybe a little emotional tonight.
I thought, oh God, here comes the emotional question. That's not my strong suit. But
wait till you hear the question that Olivier has for you now. I guarantee it will make you misty. Olivier.
I've always thought that Ben had an old face anyway. So we talked a little bit about the $6 billion stimulus package for the media in this election. Mark Knoller, the unofficial archivist for the White House press corps, tweeted out the other day that by his count, the president did 101 rallies in 9 states, 221 fundraisers in 24 states. Who's the president reaching with a TV interview to, say, Colorado today, and why should we expect that to make any difference after this kind of campaign?
Well, look, we're not saying that the whole election will hinge on doing a set of satellite interviews today. We laid the groundwork starting in April of last year, building this campaign on the ground in states across the country, to have those teams on the ground intact today who knew everybody in their neighborhood who was supporting the president, everybody who was undecided. But ultimately, I think that final pitch from the president himself to reach those small sliver of voters who are either undecided or undecided about voting is important. Some of the interviews he's been doing in the past few days have been in unlikely venues on the radio. Ryan Seacrest, for example, to remind young people that there are 15 million young people who weren't old enough to vote for the president the last time around. They're very supportive. If they go out and vote, we'll get a long way towards re-electing the president today.
Ben LeBolt, notwithstanding your totally disappointing lack of emotion, we do appreciate your time. And thank you very
thanks for
much.
having me.
Hope you get a break when this thing is over, and we all hope it's over tonight. And speaking of tonight, all of us will be back here starting at 7 until this thing ends. We'll be covering it, the combined forces of ABC News and Yahoo News. We've got reporters out in all the battleground states. We've got Olivier, Amy, and Walter, and Jeff, and Phoebe, and I'll be here trying to add some minimal amount of value as well. You can tweet us at #YourVote. We'll have local results all night long. We'll talk to you soon.